Good evening, and welcome back to the Whitest Mexican You Know. Obviously, I'm your host, Antonio, aka the Whitest Mexican You Know. It's been about 3 months, and I'm sorry for anybody who actually listens to this podcast that I've been gone for that long. But I had some shit to figure out. I broke my hand. Pretty sure you remember when I had my hand fucking broken.
Yeah.
So I took a little bit of time off to get shit straight, but I'm back, and finally, a guest that I've been trying to get on the podcast for at least like 2 months now. Fucking MMA fighter, comedian extraordinaire, Mr. David Hulett. How you doing, brother?
What's going on, Antonio? It's good to be here finally.
Finally. We made it work. Schedule's worked out. We're here.
I'm just absolutely searing with jealousy and rage, though, because I see how nice this podcast studio is, because I thought that we had a cool setup, which we do at the Paprika Studio on a podcast that me and Jason Gothans has been trying to put together. But this is like very professional. You explained the soundproofing, how you built it all. You've got like, compared to us, very few wires. We're sitting in a bird's nest.
Oh yeah.
With ours, yeah. It's...
All my wires are hidden back here. I have things taped under the tables. Like if you look down here, you'll see it. But I tried to make everything clean as I can up here, so you're not having to, jump over shit or, catching your leg on something and fucking the entire thing up.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's hard. We're having a hard time building it because Gothans tends to like break down the studio and we have to rebuild it. I'm like, that's the whole point of having a studio. Like, the whole point is that you just sit down and you get started.
Yeah.
You don't have to build a fucking studio every time that you do an episode. That's why we have our own stuff, and we have our own space.
And what's the purpose for him to break it down all the time?
I have no idea what he does. I don't know what he does. It's like, I don't know what he does in that room. I just know that it's always like clean, and we have to reset everything up. I'm like, we can kind of slowly build up a space like this.
Yeah.
So that's once he's taking a break to do some work and stuff, and then when we get back, I'm gonna have to make that a real point, because it's like because you're like, we want a studio so we can just sit down and hit record and we have an idea. I say, that's perfect, let's do it. And then I'll show back up the next day and I'm like, where's the stuff? He's like, oh yeah, we got to set it back up. I was like, okay, well, and then afterward I say, well, can we leave it up? He's like, no, we got. I'm like, what are you doing in here?
Yeah.
What kind of, how many, like, do you have to sacrifice the goats in our studio? Like, there's so many good goat sacrificing areas in that house.
Yeah, that's why I like this. I mean, because you told me you were on your way, turned on the computer, hit a couple buttons, and then we're good to go.
Searing with jealousy.
I'll give you all the notes that I have, because it took me a long time to figure this out and to set it up.
Yeah.
And it looks good.
Well, that's the thing.
I'm always happy.
Because I've done this. I started a podcast when I was in Chiang Mai. I was in Chiang Mai, Thailand working, and I built a podcast on the back of a fucking moped, driving around the jungle, getting bits and pieces and adapters and stuff. Because not even, you couldn't really like just order shit off of Amazon. I didn't have like an address or whatever. Yeah. And I built a thing. I had this duffel bag I would carry around from country to country, and I did what I was calling the Hollywood Hulett podcast. That, don't look it up. There's probably some episodes floating around, but it's really just me and my friends smoking weed and talking shit. But I would encounter so many different people from different countries, and cool. Everyone like the fight game and stuff. Yeah. Did episodes in Thailand, Malaysia, Kuwait. Me and JT Money Taylor, Jesse Taylor, we both won belts down in Australia, and then we just kind of fucking lived there for a little while in Western Australia.
Dude, hell yeah.
And we ran a podcast out of a shed. Yeah. And that was like one of the first regular ones where we would just meet up and we would just roll. And we kind of practiced the editing and everything. And, anyway, so I did that. And then I realized I didn't know how to do it. I didn't understand. Really, I didn't understand comedy. It wasn't until I started doing comedy that I was like, I want to start doing this again. I think I know how to do it right. Because I learned how to talk.
Oh, yeah.
I learned how to have a conversation.
Yeah. And that was the thing, because I had a podcast with my buddy for like 4 years. This was before I did stand-up, before anything. Like him and I were just like, we lived together, we worked all the time, and we're like, what do we want to do on the spare time? That doesn't cost us a whole lot of money. Yeah. And so we had microphones, at first no video, just audio, and it was just him. Him and I just fucking around, talking shit. We would watch clips on, the internet, talk more shit or whatever. Eventually, after those 4 years, you figure out how to hold a conversation with each other, because even though we were buddies, once you get on mic, once, the cameras are on, people stiffen up a little bit, and I realized, and him and I both realized, like, there's got to be a flow to this. We got to keep it interesting, keep it moving. And then when I started doing this one, after he didn't want to do the podcast anymore, then I had to, in a sense, interview people. I was like, okay, now this is, again, a different type of thing. Like, I know how to talk, I know how to flow in conversation, but now because I'm the host, I got to make sure we're still rolling.
Right.
Because I've had a couple guests on here where I'd ask them a question, they'd answer it, but it would stop real quick. And it's like, oh shit, okay, that's on me to ask more questions about it. Have them open up, elaborate. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I've been really not struggling to get into that, but it's definitely different. But that's what I like about this podcast, is that we can just sit down, we can just talk, And what I did want to ask is, what allowed you to travel the world like that? Because I've only been out of the country, but it was to go to Mexico when I was like 11, you know? Other than that, never been outside of the country.
Yeah, I've never been to South America, but when I came out to Las Vegas in 2009 to pursue professional mixed martial arts, but it was way before there was infrastructure. There was no farm league. There was no route. Everyone, if you were just a dude doing this crazy combat sport, it wasn't even that popular. When I started it in 2000, the UFC wasn't even in Las Vegas yet. Zuffa hadn't bought them. I think it was kind of in the dark ages of the SEG days. So SEG Sports and Meyerowitz, I think is his name. He owned that one. That was the pay-per-view, like blood sport, karate versus Silat or whatever. And a sumo wrestling versus kung fu. That which was originally an actual infomercial for the Gracie family. It's actually an expansion of the Gracie challenge matches. If you're a jiu-jitsu nerd, you probably already know that. And if you're not, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Anyway, but they eventually, that ran its course. The UFC, I believe, had gone down to, it was like worth $2 million. Dana White in like 2000, 2001 convinced the Fertitta brothers, who own the Station Casinos. They're the Station Casino billionaires. Convinced them to buy it, and then they put money in it. But then when the Ultimate Fighter season 1 hit, it blew the fuck up. That was like 2004 or something like that. And I didn't come out here till like 2009 when I finally did, and I was down in Alabama living at the time, trying to lie my way through, like saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna use my degree for this or whatever," and I was like, my degree's in broadcasting though. By the time I graduated, it was a dead system.
Pretty much,
and
because it was about the time, early 2000s is when like XM radio came out. And so like traditional broadcasting kind of fell by the wayside. And then the internet and then podcasting came out. And it's like so hard to find a professional gig in something like that now because everybody's doing it. Somebody like me, I'm broke and I do comedy all the time and I can fucking do it,
Yeah, you don't need a studio. It became very clear that running your own program and being disconnected from like a larger network or whatever was not the way to go. It just wasn't profitable. And if you look at it, sitcoms have gone by the wayside, and the industry that I was trained in, broadcast journalism, the news. I can sum it up really quick. I mean, here's the deal: you get your news from your phone, but here's the deal: if we're hanging out in West Vegas and we can see the Las Vegas Strip, and all of a sudden there's a loud boom, and we see the stratosphere shoot out a plume of smoke and then tip over like a video game and crash into the Las Vegas Strip. We're not going to wait till 6 o'clock to find out what happened, and we're not going to fucking go there. We're just going to go on our phones and we're going to see it happen live and decide how we actually feel about it. No one's going to wait around for the news. But here's the interesting thing with economics: supply equals demand. But when you have a mismatched supply and demand, you have usually government subsidies, i.e. the corn industry, wherever there's all these extra corn products because the government was subsidizing all these farms where the free market couldn't support the demand for it.
Gotcha.
There wasn't enough demand for all the corn that they were making, right? And now there's not a demand for all the news there's making, and yet there's more news than ever. And so whenever you have an increasing supply with a decreasing demand, it's subsidy. Someone's pumping it in. That's what that is,
So somebody's spending money so that other people have to meet that demand because they're getting paid for it either way. And like we were talking about right before we turned on the mics is like, that's why kids are getting fed so much bullshit these days, is because everybody's got to put out a story, no matter what it is, no matter how true or what it's about. You got to put something out.
This is my problem, though. I don't think it's organic, and the reason is because it's homogenized. You don't have you used to be the news. The story was you want to get the scoop. You want to get the scoop on the other stations, right? Yeah. If you have the Antonio Times, I've got the David Press or whatever, and like the same something crazy happens in Las Vegas, we both want to report it, but I want to report it in a different, more interesting way than you do it, so people buy my shit and not yours.
Yeah,
that's the whole point of marketing. That's just. It's the only way to do it in a system where you have a competitive market of any kind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm selling widgets, you're selling gadgets. I need to sell more of my shit than your shit, or else you're going to outsell me and I got a business. Yeah. Right? And so like Fox and NBC and ABC and whatever, like Fox is obviously like the one who does the opposite of what they do, right? But all the other ones report the exact same shit in the same way. They use the same keywords and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, this is absolutely like government subsidy. I've heard somebody from China, they were saying that like, we know our news is propaganda, but Americans haven't figured it out yet.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that
as well. Basically that. But I mean, that is like textbook. And if you see who's pushing it too, like fascism, which would be a lack of separation between government and corporations, that's exactly what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And so it's very creepy and is especially annoying. Just the amount, I was saying before we turn this thing on, I was a substitute school teacher here in Clark County, which is a fucking nightmare. Don't ever do it. The school system is the worst. I'm trying to, and the kids, like you're not going to focus them in on anything because they've got more info. Even if there was no intentionally distracting shit going on, just the sheer volume of stuff you have access to through the internet, through entertainment or whatever. But even like podcasts and YouTube videos, I see all kinds of interesting stuff on TikTok,
Yeah.
I see clips of that and I'm like, oh, there's real information everywhere. Why am I going to listen to this underpaid, underappreciated chain smoker who's stuck here yelling at a bunch of kids?
Yeah.
It's not going to work. So it's unbelievable to me that it seems like a conscious effort to like break down, because generationally it makes us dumber. It's like like this, it's idiocracy coming true.
Yeah. And what's interesting, I've always thought about is like even if you think back to just like, because how old are you?
41.
Okay, I'm 27.
Yeah.
So we both remember a time where we were younger and you could have a conversation with your friend and spit out some fact or something like that. And if you sounded like you knew what you were talking about, they'd kind of have to believe you. Right. But now nobody trusts anybody because they think I can figure it out for myself. And the people who I'm going to listen to, they're smarter than you or smarter than the people that you're listening to.
Everybody assumes that somebody smarter than them has figured it out. And they know they're stupid because they went through the Clark County school system. They understand that they look, I got out of school and I realized like, I don't want to be a teacher because teachers are fucking miserable, underpaid people. Not because it's not the job I want to do. I wanted to do that job. But when I started substituting at Clark, I was like, I would talk to the other teachers, say like, hey, you've got more experience at this than I do.
Yeah.
I'm interested in doing what you do. I think, this is the direction I want to go. And they just be like, run.
Yeah, don't do it.
Get out.
Yeah.
Get out. Are they listening? You gotta hide. Get out.
Yeah.
It's the only job I've been to where everyone hated the job. Like nobody wanted to be there. It was like a prison colony.
Yeah.
Where the kids don't want to be there. They're bringing in, what is it, the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah.
And they can bust that. They've got a full gaming system that's light years beyond anything that I ever grew up with.
Yeah.
And I barely paid attention in school. These kids don't have a chance. They don't have a chance.
And like, what grades did you normally sub for?
I was at Johnson Middle School, and so it was just middle school. It was like 6, 7, 8, I think.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, because my sister is an elementary school teacher. I think she teaches like 2nd or 3rd grade, something like that.
Yeah.
And she likes that because at that age, you have way more kids who are still excited about school.
Yeah.
And it's like usually right about middle school age is when puberty, girls, gadgets, this, that, and the other, that nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah. I mean, that's before the age that they start having to stress over like, oh, this standardized test score is going to ruin my life, or again, like the puberty and stuff and interacting. Even like social interaction, sexual development, like how kids are growing up now, like it was weird enough in the 90s. It was, and now I'm just like kids become like complacent when you overwhelm them with shit, when they're was unfocused. But the real thing that makes kids complacent, I think, is when it becomes obvious to them and they know more than people think. But it becomes obvious to the kids that the adults have no fucking idea what's going on either. Like that's what I checked out. Like there's a point with my parents where I'm like, oh, neither one of you have any idea what you're doing.
Yeah. But it took you a while. You had to have been like, because I had that realization when I was like almost a senior in high school.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm working, I'm doing all this shit. My parents are trying to tell me what to do, or I see, their interactions with each other, and I'm like, oh, you guys have no idea what the fuck you're doing. Because my mom got pregnant with my older brother at 17.
Wow, yeah.
It's like, yeah, you guys had no fucking chance. Like you screwed it from the beginning, and you've just been trying to make it work. It's like at this point, it's like, I think it was like Joe Rogan said, like in one of his stand-ups, where he's like, there, like, we get to an age where you go, I thought I'd be an adult, but I feel like I'm still a kid. And it's like, oh, there are no adults. Like, it's just everybody just trying to figure it out.
The difference between a real adult and a child is that a real adult is honest about how little they actually know. And a stupid adult pretends like they still play the same game with other adults that that some of the other people play with kids, where it's like, no, I know stuff, you don't know stuff. I know the truth, you don't have the truth. To a degree, that's true, right?
Like that on the playground where there would be that one kid who dictates like how we play this game, and I'm in charge. Listen to me.
Right.
Adults do the same fucking thing, yeah.
But it's like you fake it till you make it. But then like once the kids call you on your bullshit, if you don't have the humility to be like, you know what, this 10-year-old just fucked me up. Like I'm gonna have to like get real and be like, all right, you know what? Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go together and we're gonna find out what the real answer is, and we're gonna answer the question instead of like, you'll go to hell if you disagree with me. Is I grew up in the Bible Belt, so there's a whole lot of like, I don't have a problem with religion because I see it as like I grew up, it was a community center. Although if you get weird with it, I mean, if you make religion like your religion, like people make politics their religion now. Like people, it's so hilarious to me that people who are like, I'm an atheist, religion's stupid. It makes no sense to base your entire life and worldview around some shit that somebody else wrote that they may not have even believed. Meanwhile, the news is nothing more than an actor on stage reading shit that he didn't write in order to trick people, which is exactly people get just as dogmatic and just as like quote religious about politics or whatever as and then they shit on the same thing and totally neglecting the fact that just in the idea of information processing in their own head, they're just shitting on all the rules. It's like, no, I can take 5 steps out of the scientific method and say just that's a good test like that. Like, no, it's checks and balances. The reason it works is because it keeps you from bullshitting yourself. That's the whole point,
exactly.
And that's the critical thinking idea. And my whole philosophy is process thinking. I'm a minor in philosophy, not to brag, but one thing I got into was the thing about process thinking. Now, these two guys, Charles Hartshorne and Alfred North Whitehead, separate philosophers, but they both kind of had this style. And this basically trace it back to the caves. Everything has to be, everything you think you know or believe or they should or whatever, as far as humans go, you got to trace it back to survival. Everything was necessity. It means if you didn't do it, you fucking died. You died, we shriveled up and went extinct. We happen to have like a nice podcast studio and a city and guns and whatever. We have stuff. And so people get complacent. And when you don't understand the necessity and you don't have tradition that respects the necessity, even if you don't need it anymore, then what you have is dogma, which is if you eat the pork, you go to hell. It's like, no, it's because if you ate it back then, you would die. And then out of respect for the people who didn't die and allowed us to live, we don't eat it. That's how we have tradition. And then dogma is, fuck you, don't eat pigs, they're dirty. It's like, well, not really. Bacon's fucking delicious. I mean, it's not a bad thing to eat. It's just that there's dogma surrounded it. But we have that now with politics, and it doesn't take generations of religious, hammering to get to it now. Now we get in like a fucking 2-month news cycle. We have new dogma all of a sudden. It's like, what, you can't say this word, or you can't point out this, or I was like, well, no, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but we have a very strange, I don't know, what he's called it, like a very loud minority. I drive Lyft now. I drive around. I talk to people from all over. And what I've noticed is there's certain areas that are very dogmatic. And then there's certain areas that are just like, yeah, man, we're just trying to we don't give a shit about any of that. We're just,
Yeah, I'm just doing what I need to do.
I'm just trying to drink and get laid and hang out in Vegas, dude. Like, I don't give a shit about any of that. Like, no, like, if you're cool, like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
and the interesting thing is if you look like back through history, the evolution of what we needed to try to find, what do you call it? Like a tribe, because back in the day you did have one. It was a small group of humans. We're all trying to survive. There's probably 1 or 2 people kind of in charge. We believe in them because they're going to keep us alive. And you started getting more people, then you need religion. You need religion to keep everybody together. And then after that, it started growing. Now we're all kind of detached from each other. And so you need to find your little pockets of your tribe, which is the politics, the whatever, just these things to cling on to so you don't feel like you're dumb and left out.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like, when you say, like, we need religion to hold the tribe together, that's literal, because religion is, like, when people, I learned about the word dogma from the Kevin Smith movie Dogma, which is about, making fun of the Catholic Church. And then I said, oh, that's what dogma is. And then when I was in college, I learned about the philosophical definition of it, and how basically it's when you forget why we started doing any of the shit in the first place.
Yeah.
And then the thing is that you can start it. It's 3 steps, but you can start it in a tradition or whatever that has no attachment to necessity. And those things usually fall by the wayside, unless, very much like the news thing, it's like all of a sudden we got more supply than we have demand. Who's pumping it into our society? Like, why is this even a thing? Because it's not organic. You know what I mean? It's not organic. No one's like, I want fentanyl.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like nobody's like, hey, let's get more of that. No one's like, I want racism. No one's like, hey, I would love to be super paranoid and whatever. Like, no, but this is not a demand for this. We organically would work this stuff out for ourselves.
Yeah.
And this comes back to this Thomas Hobbes, which is the philosopher. He had a very pessimistic view of human nature, which is why Bill Watterson based the character from Calvin and Hobbes, the tiger, the cartoon, on, he named him Hobbes, because it's based off of Thomas Hobbes.
I didn't know that.
Calvin was, I don't want to say John Calvin, but it might have been. But basically, he was a philosopher whose name was Calvin, who had a very optimistic view of human nature, and is the dynamic. Bill Watterson is like a master's in philosophy. Yeah, that's why Calvin and Hobbes is so dope. Right?
Yeah, that's why one of my favorite books of all time.
The Hobbesian view of human nature is that it's the Lord of the Flies. Basically, if chips are down and it's a bunch of humans, then humans will start to kill and eat each other in order to survive, because we're selfish, patriarchal pieces of crap. That's fucking stupid. And the reason it's stupid is because those situations have happened, and people do exactly what you should do. They work together. They figure out who gets the coconuts, who catches the fish, who sharpens the spears, and they fucking survive. Do you know how I know that's true? Because we're fucking sitting here in a podcast studio and there's no tigers trying to eat us.
Yeah.
We're doing just fine. Everyone's like, are you sure? I'm like, when was the last time someone got eaten by a bear on the way to work?
Exactly.
We're doing great.
Oh, yeah.
We used to not be doing so well. There used to be more big cats than people.
Yeah.
And they're not. Those motherfuckers are in zoos. Good.
Yeah, now tigers are going extinct.
Yeah, fucking good. Keep them.
Fuck them, those monsters.
I'd love to see a fucking give me a tiger right now. I'll kick him in his fucking face. I won't. You take off my leg. They're way better at surviving than we are. Yeah. Do you ever think about that? Like, think about how many animals are better at surviving than us, and we won.
Yeah.
Because we didn't used to be the dominant species. It's not like there was just more people than fucking dinosaurs at one point or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and who knows? And as far as like the timeline for all that stuff, I'm a big fan of like cataclysmic reset theory, which basically means that society could have we've developed for like a couple thousand years of history. You know what I mean? Like that's all we got. That's all we got. And like 12,000 years ago, there's a massive cataclysm that killed most of the stuff. But that's happened like a lot.
Yeah.
Which means like if we only had 2,000 years and we got phones and iPad studios, then what if we had 10,000 years to develop? Like we could totally build a Starbucks on the moon.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's the thing. I got really into Graham Hancock, where he talks about that whole like reset, like 12,000 years ago. But like, you know, we were more advanced, not than we are now, but at the time than you would think of 12,000 years ago.
Right.
But, you know, cataclysmic event, and it kind of reset us. I have like 3 of his books. Like
nice.
I got really obsessed with that, and it makes a lot of sense to me, especially like the way he lays it out. And yeah, if we had that extra 12,000 years where if we didn't have that reset, like you said, Starbucks on the moon already, like we would have been a lot further, or we could have been.
Or the people who are running shit when people did come out of the caves, maybe there is one like awesome, like still super advanced society that would happen to survive the cataclysm. And then they're like, all right, we're going to wait for these fucking people, cave people. They're basically cave people now to come out of the caves. And then we're just going to put them where we want like cattle and run them around, which is sort of I guess that's basically the idea behind like lizard people running the government. It actually
I got real high watching Ancient Aliens, and they're talking about like the aliens came down and, you know, built the pyramids and this and that. And like their timeline where it kind of ends is about 12,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's when the cataclysmic event came up.
Oh, that's
I was like,
weird.
they all bailed, but then they planted seeds of humanity and then watched us grow. And like, it's the same thing you were talking about. I got real high and scared the shit out of myself with that because I made it make sense to me.
For me, it's like comforting.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in the Bible Belt where it's like you can't quite like I went to a church where they were like the Bible is a philosophy. You take the positivity, and we're a community center. We're trying to just build a big, strong, positive community for the people here. And most of them, I mean, they also are like, fuck those people across the street. They're all going to hell. But also, we're building a community. We're building a community.
Yeah.
But the church, the school I went to was also like a Presbyterian school. I was going to like Baptist for Boy Scouts, Presbyterian for school, and Methodist for church.
Interesting.
So, and then there's a bunch of other people. I knew one kid named Zach Schemper, and he was Jewish, and he stole stuff. He was a kleptomaniac, but he's also hilarious. He's still a friend of mine. He's a great guy.
Nice.
But but no one gave a shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, the fucking Jew. No, dude, he was just a fucking. We all went to different churches. We all thought everyone was going to hell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
it's like they didn't hate him because he was a Jew. They hate him because he was stealing their shit.
No, we liked him. He stole a live lobster out of Walmart once. He's a legend. No, he's a fucking legend. All right. He's
nice.
It's not that we didn't trust him. We were like, what can you do next? He's like, let me tell you what I can do now, bro. And I was like, holy shit, this guy's a badass.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So shout out to Zach Schemper. Schemper Scrap Metal in Hattiesburg.
There have been very few shout outs on this podcast, but I'm glad you shouted him out.
And you know what? I don't even care if it's the truth or not. It was such a funny story because he would talk about, like, I would hear these stories about how he could pull off these heists in the mall, and you know, and so I was like, all right, I want you to get a lobster from the tank in Walmart. That's what you got. And I don't know. He told me he did it, and I'm gonna just believe him.
Oh, you never saw the lobster?
That's my personal dogma. I don't need to see the necessity of that. It's hilarious. And so I'm sticking with it.
Yeah. Tell me a good story. As long as it's not super over the top, I'm going to believe you.
Yeah. Well, also it was my idea, and he did it.
Yeah.
Or lied about doing it, which I'm fine. Either way, I don't care.
Yeah. You just want to believe in cool shit.
I never saw the lobster. He said he ate it. That makes sense to me.
So, but it's like if you're sending him on that mission, it should be like a video game. It's like, you got to bring that lobster to me.
Yeah, that's true. But
I wouldn't have thought he was lying. I'd have just been mad that I didn't get the lobster.
Yeah, my point is that they got the people who got really serious in the Bible Belt were the ones that believed that everyone who wasn't at their church was going to hell because they had it slightly different than they did.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of people, they're like, yeah, I go to church. I go to a non-denominational church. Oh, I go to an Episcopalian church.
Yeah,
I go to a Baptist church. I was like, okay, cool. So everyone goes to a church. I was just understood that everyone goes to some kind of church.
Yeah.
And also there's no reason to stress ourselves out over the details. And there were a couple of kids that did, and those kids were douchebags.
Yeah.
And we didn't worry about them.
And it never made sense to me because, like, I grew up Catholic.
Yeah.
That's all I ever knew. But as I got older, I realized, like, all these, like, you know, Christian branches, they all pretty much believe the core same shit.
Yeah.
So it's like, why do you have such a beef with them? Because they believe the same fucking thing that you do.
And here's tying it back. Do you know what all the religions have in common? Survival tactics.
Oh, yeah.
It's all about don't piss off other people. Don't be a dick or else the tribe will kill and eat you.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line of all the religions. Don't piss people off or the tribe. And this is how you piss the tribe off. You make it harder for them to survive. How do you do that? You
steal from me.
Yeah, you steal from me. You fuck up the natural. Basically, you're selfish. You're an egomaniac. You kill people because we need more people. There's too many tigers. We need more people. We don't have enough people. The more people we have, the easier we can throw those rocks off the cliff and get the woolly mammoth because we're gonna fucking starve and get eaten by tigers. So we have to do whatever we have to. We have to fuck. We have to make babies. Which makes it. Also, we have to take care of children because our children are all fucked up. Then the next generation can be fucked up, and then they're going to get eaten by tigers.
Well,
and
that's where
extinct.
That's where the Catholic Church took that deviation.
Well, let me just get my tinfoil hat on here.
Oh man.
Do you really need a tinfoil hat when you're talking about conspiracy theories of the Catholic Church? They've been busted like 10,000 times for running child sex trafficking rings, and nobody says anything about it. And I'm not saying like your average Catholic. I'm talking about the fucking lizard people that started the Catholic Church and then got everybody else in like the cattle situation. Yeah. I heard they wear those big hats because they have big alien heads. That's what I heard.
No, I do. I've gone down all those fucking rabbit holes. I know it all. I love the videos that they have on YouTube where it's like some camera glitch, in the video or whatever. So it distorts the face and they're like, no, he's changing into a lizard.
I saw one where like Hillary Clinton's taking a drink of, she's like coughing really bad, like kind of weird, honestly. I've never coughed that bad. And she takes a sip of water. I swear it looks like a hologram tongue goes down into it like an iguana.
I've seen that.
I watched that shit. I have goosebumps right now talking about it because I still kind of am like probably I don't know. I don't even know if that's a person. This is a thing on television. You know what I mean? Like unless you've gotten drunk with the actual person, and then here's where you can fuck yourself up even more. Because there's the idea that basically any technology that we have, which is super fucking advanced, like by our standards, I was born in 1980. The stuff we have now is straight science fiction. Yeah. And then you hear about stuff that they might have had. You hear about like Nikola Tesla, but you hear about all the other stuff as well. All the stuff Leonardo da Vinci was working on. There's all kinds of crazy inventions that they may or may not have. Like when the Predator movie came out, he's got that invisible suit, right? That like bends light, and I'm sure people have seen this, like when the documentary on the making of, and the military guy saw it, says, "I want one of those," and apparently and the guy in the documentary is like, "Yeah," and apparently they're pretty close to getting it. Yeah. Well, they do have stuff like that now, and that was like in the 90s. Yeah. So the idea that we would even be aware of the level of technology that we're not being told about is ridiculous to me. Like the most important thing a human can know is that we don't know shit. Yeah. And then you can start to understand, to see how stuff is put together.
Yeah. That's it's a great thing that I've always heard. I forget who said it, but he said if you draw a little bubble, it's like what you know, what you don't know, and what you don't know you don't know. Right. And that's monumental. And I've always heard that that's how the military does it. They have all these technological advances, and usually it takes about 5 years, I think, before the general public knows about it. Yeah. And think about everything we have now.
If I can buy it on Amazon, then so can the Taliban or whatever. You know what I mean? So why the fuck would anything awesome be available to me? Yeah. Period.
Yeah. And it's like with all those like UFO things now, it's like the Pentagon came out talking about it. Like now it's becoming legit that there are weird things flying around that nobody knows what they are. I'm still convinced it's military. I'm convinced the military knows what it is.
It's aliens who work for the military.
Yes. It's the goddamn lizard people. But I'm convinced that it's like something the military has. It's starting to like get leaked and they don't want to own up to it yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they're ashamed. They're just like, yeah, no, we're gonna plasma vaporize, like, you know,
yeah,
Detroit or whatever we need to do, you know.
And that's what scares me.
Get this in here, by the way. It's a vape.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah,
don't worry about it. There's no detector, as long as it smells like bubblegum. But yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, of course, because I'm from Texas, and so I'm Second Amendment type guy. I think everybody should be able to do whatever they want, bear arms, this, that, and the other. But when the argument is it's so we can fight off a tyrannical government, I'm like, all right, there's a good chance they have UFOs that they're flying around. Your AR-15 ain't gonna do shit. I still think you should have it, but that's not a good argument because they could fuck us up. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, it's so easy for them to roll over us.
Yeah. I mean, this is where we're actually, I think that okay, you ever met like someone who just lies about everything? Like they're a narcissist or whatever, and like you catch them in lies and you're just like, no, that I know that's not true. That thing you're saying didn't happen. You did it right in front of me, and here's the scar to prove it.
Yeah.
And you're still acting like that didn't happen. That's shit. Where the fuck was I going with that? You can see the truth because of the lies. It's like if you have a waterproof spot on a window and you pour water over it, the water is all going to be like it's like, okay, wherever the lies can't go, that's where the truth probably is.
Yeah.
And so you can't know for sure, but you can guesstimate. And if you know that person is not trustworthy, then it's like that you know a direction to lean in logically. Yeah. And you can wrap your head around what might be the case. And then and you sort of play these like proximal logic games until you get to like what you believe, which is total insanity, which is where I'm at right now. Yeah. But also on the news, all the conspiracy theories that the craziest person I knew in college used to tell me while he was high on opium are coming true. I was like, yeah, you're on drugs, whatever.
Yeah.
And then 9/11 happened. And then a bunch of we watched 9/11 happen on TV. Yeah. And I just remember watching the news before I even studied the news, but I was like, just the way, like, how are you going to know exactly what happened while it's happening if you're so surprised? You know, official stories, people believe conspiracy theories because official stories make less sense than conspiracy theories. Yeah. That's why, because conspiracy theories have more, like, it's not even like it's a theory, I guess, because the people who are irresponsible or whatever don't just like admit it, but why would they? That's the whole point. When you're dealing with someone who does not give a fuck about you, then they're not going to tell you the truth. They're not going to, you don't deserve the truth. Yeah. And it's not like there's any kind of compassion there's not an end point to where they're going to suddenly be like, you know what, you got me. It's not going to happen. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you held them down and tortured them, it might not even work. You know what I mean? Yeah,
it'll still be.
You're going to die, and I'm going to start cutting things off that you need until you do, or you can tell me what's going on.
And they'll still try to justify it.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Some people, that's just how their brain is wired. And I don't know if it's like, it could be like a justified narcissism, as in like you're in the farmer to the cattle position of the population, or it could be like a mental illness like narcissism where there is no. You don't matter, but there's no me either. And so I'm going to just create, everything is fiction basically. And so I can't process information in a realistic way. I'm just going to I'm going to twist my own version of everything to make me feel better about myself until the day I die. It's not capable of going to a logical place. The problem with that, and we have so much of that now because we've lost touch with necessity. We live in a world of primarily dogma, and people don't know what the necessity of this shit is. People, I promise you, there weren't cave people like that.
No, yeah.
I promise you, weren't people like that in the caves
because they died quickly.
They died quickly because they were fucking morons, and their behavior did not support the survival of the tribe overall.
Yeah, it's like if somebody said, "Don't go out at night." They're these crazy beasts out there that'll eat you. And that one guy goes, fuck you. I don't believe what you're saying.
No, there's not. It's like, dude, a fucking cat ate my brother yesterday. It's like, no, he didn't.
Yeah. And
then
here's
his arm. Here's his arm. And then, that's what happens. And that's I've heard a lot of criticisms of Darwin that kind of makes sense. But the idea of Darwinism is survival of the fittest. Like, that is true to a point. Yeah. But the Hobbesian philosophy, the Walking Dead philosophy, that the people who are surviving together are more problems to people than the zombies are, that's fucking stupid. And if that it's a very entertaining show.
I don't know. There is an element of where I can believe that philosophy, because like if you look at like certain very poor places in like Africa or something, it's like, yeah, they have lions to deal with, this, that, and the other. For the most part, you can maintain. But then who comes around and fucks it all up? Are these roaming gangs of dudes who will, get into your village, rape your women, kill your men, and then leave.
But those guys aren't worried about lions either. That's what I'm saying. Once you get to the point where you're comfortable to the top of the food chain level, which is how we are as long as we're not in the ocean. That's how we fit. Then we find other stuff to deal with. But at the bottom line, most species that have been on Earth have gone extinct.
Yeah.
And humans are not immune to that. Humans could totally go extinct.
Oh yeah.
But
we've been close many times.
But we've gotten really good at not going extinct for those reasons and those reasons alone. It's because we work together. We were communal, and you can go back to the Sex at Dawn book. You're familiar with that one?
I've heard of it.
Christopher Robin or whatever, Christopher Robinson. I forget, but he basically he tied it back to where those bonobo apes, which are matriarchal, and chimps that are patriarchal. And we've all been told we evolved from chimps, but we really have more in common with bonobos. And it makes sense because the chimps are Hobbesian and the bonobos are more of a Calvinist like perspective. As in I've described it like this, where if you got two tribes of chimpanzees and they want a banana tree, they're going to fight until all the males are dead and they've dominated the other tribe and they've cut their genetic potential in half. Genetic potential is how you get mutations. They're not going to be able to fuck as much. They're not going to make as much genetic diversity. They're not going to get as much evolution. Versus bonobos, which is run by the females, the tribe leaders, is my understanding. I could be totally fucking this up, but I think this is how it goes.
And they fuck everybody.
They have sex with everybody. That's how they keep the men in line. Down with the patriarchy, but it's because you got to fuck us.
Yeah.
That's how it works, because it's the whole, and then that's where you have controversy with like religion going against like sort of our natural instincts, right? Because once we get comfortable, you can't just fuck everybody, because some people are fucking idiots and you want them raising your kids. Yeah. So you have to pay attention. That's where the family unit becomes valuable and stuff. You say, okay, and that goes back to protecting the children, which is a more important.
But it's also to ensure the fact that you, as a singular person, are passing on your genetic material. Because if everybody was fucking everybody, you're never really sure if you produced a kid out here.
Right.
But you, as just a singular organism, we have that need to know that we passed on our genetics.
There is that, but that's a little bit of ego. It's a little bit of hubris, because really it's just about making sure that humans don't go extinct. So if I can make 3 people, I've done my job.
Yeah. But do you think it's more almost, I don't want to say hive mind-ish, but do you think it's more like that, where it's like, hey, if there's a group of us, we're all fucking, we're just making sure we're making more people? Or do you think it comes into play where even way back in the day, there was a man, a caveman or whatever, who really wanted to make sure, like, I'm going to raise my kid. You know what I mean? Like, because it's me. It's a little me. I passed on this genetic material.
Well, nobody wants the village idiot fucking their wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you're like if Chim and Bok are like, one of them's stupid and one of them's smart, and the tribe respects one, the tribe thinks the other one's a moron. Like there's first of all, there's probably a necessity, a good read. That's the one who's like, there's no tigers, I'm gonna go catch one. Yeah. Like, what? You just said there's none, and I'm gonna ride one, and then he's fucking dead in the morning, or whatever. Like, those guys don't make it too much. You don't necessarily want, but when it gets to the point where it's not just about numbers, it's actually quality. Once we get quantity under control, right, where there's enough of us that we don't have to worry about getting eaten by cats every fucking moment of the day, then it becomes like, all right, how do we make a better version of what we got? This house is made out of straw. I'd like to make it out of bricks. How do we get there? Well, we need smart people. We need people who are going to show up, do the work, who understand, perseverance and survival, and who can also pass on all the core values that allowed us to survive this far in the first place. Because again, humans got no fucking business as a mammal surviving with the other mammals. You ever met another mammal that was more equipped than you? Every fucking mammal, if a mouse was big enough, they would be running the fucking earth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They how do they do it? They do the exact same thing. They breed like fucking crazy and they survive like a son of a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. That's how all the species do it. That's why we don't have to worry about bears, because humans identified them as a threat and started fucking them up. Yeah. That's why you don't have to worry about tigers, because humans identified them as a threat and started fucking them up. Yeah. All these different things. That's why we go after sharks.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't even live in the ocean, but sharks are fucking,
they're a threat.
they will eat us. Not all sharks. I mean, in general, I understand like the whole like, and I'm speaking in like kind of a binary sense right now, being a little extreme. But like, I'm not saying we should go out and like kill all the sharks.
Yeah.
But that's just because I'm not going to run into one on Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if
it's like, if I'm taking a shower later and there's a shark in my fucking shower, then I'm killing them all.
But if there's only 50 of us and we live on an island and we can't fucking fish because there's a shark that plucks one of us out of the ocean every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We got to get that motherfucker because he's not going to stop. We have to do that. So it's him or us. It is binary. It's survival. Yeah. And that's where it becomes an issue. Once we don't need to kill the sharks, we probably shouldn't. You know what I mean? But let the sharks, let them swim around, let them contribute to that ecosystem. Mm-hmm. But when it's us or them, it's, if the people that don't choose us don't make it.
Yeah.
And you have to understand why that is. It is definitely not about your feelings being hurt.
Yeah.
It's definitely not about, you know what I mean? Like if somebody's fat, it's not that Tess Holliday isn't beautiful. She's a model. She has great symmetry. All right. She's just as fat on one side as she is on the other side. It's not that she's not beautiful. Beautiful is a scientific thing that can be boiled down to symmetry. That's why in the psychology books, they have Denzel Washington. They had him in our textbook.
Yeah.
They say if you cut his face in half, it's the same on one side as the other. That's why Denzel Washington is like the most beautiful actor objectively. It's a scientific thing you can break down.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not because she's not beautiful. It's because she's going to die and she's telling other people to be that way.
It's because she's unhealthy.
Yeah.
No matter how people try to spin it, you're unhealthy.
I would take her hiking, but only because I'm scared of bears.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
if you get an aggressive bear, you just push her and say, "Here, mate with this."
I don't have to mate with this. You're very objective about the way bears treat us in the woods.
But no, and everybody always wants to point to the fact like, back in whatever, like 1500 or whatever, that there were bigger women and they were always beautiful. It was like, because they were eating. Eating was healthy back then.
People we hadn't figured out farming. The Lord's like hoarding all the food. That's why all the fat people were fancy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that was a sign. It was a sign of being healthy. So yes, they were attractive. Nowadays,
it was a sign of being able to survive better.
Yeah,
because everyone else is dying young.
But nowadays, it's not the same thing.
Yeah,
your
whole bloodline could get plucked out by. Yeah, dude, it was still like if the plague didn't get you, a fucking tiger still might.
Yeah.
So you really don't, or whatever the Irish equivalent of a tiger is. A giant
leprechaun. I don't know.
Giant, a bird.
Some kind of bird. Yeah.
You might catch a shillelagh in the street. You don't know.
I was on one of those video sites like Omegle, something like that, where you just talk to people, video chat with them from around the world. And I ran into...
you trick people in Malaysia into watching you jerk off at 3 in the morning? Am I using it right?
It was only when I talked to enough people, I was like, okay, I think I'm just going to pull my dick out. Yeah. But I was talking to some Irish kids, like they're all about my age, they're drinking, whatever. And I started bringing up shit, and I talked about a shillelagh and... a couple other Irish things that I know about, and they were like, I have no idea what the fuck that is. I was like, really? I was like, is that just like U.S. Irish mythology or something like that? Because I have no idea.
Well, I think it's like if they watched a documentary on like the Civil War that we didn't watch, and then it's like they know some random facts that about muskets or whatever that I was like, I don't watch this show. I don't fucking know. Dude. I'm trying to get drunk with my friends, like fucking everybody else on Earth our age.
Yeah.
Like, what do you?
Stop talking to me about this shit.
Yeah, you fucking nerd. Shillelaghs, what the fuck?
It's like all I know is the half of a class that I barely paid attention to in school because I was on morphine and I didn't give a shit what they were talking about.
Yo, so you did morphine in high school?
Yeah.
What? How did you do it? Did you inject it or
No, pills.
pills? So like
Dilaudid.
Okay, so it's like a painkiller. Is that a prescription thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
My buddy's uncle had his leg amputated or something, so he took those regularly, and they're like strongest. Like I said, it's. I think it's just adjacent to actual liquid morphine that you get in the hospital. I looked it up. Basically, morphine. My buddy used to steal it from his uncle and just give it to me. I did it for years. Just because I got it for free. Yeah. It was amazing. It was the best shit I've ever had. Yeah. I loved it so much. Even now, I've been off that shit for like 7 years. Yeah. Still think about it.
There'd be times. I hear. That's one of those, even if you kick it, you never really kick it psychologically.
No. I was with Delilah. She took me out to Utah for a show. On the way back, because she takes painkillers, she has some back problem or something, she takes painkillers. She asked me,
because her back's weak from all those corsets, man. She never built up her core muscles. Right, she's always supporting it.
And so
probably for real,
it could
right?
be. I don't know.
How much supportive core muscles does she use on a daily basis? She's wearing a back brace every fucking day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, I wore a cast just for a little while, and after that, I had to build the strength back up in my wrist.
How are you gonna learn to walk if you never get out of the wheelchair?
Exactly.
It's just what it is.
She offered me like an oxy or something.
Yeah.
She was like, "Do you want one?" Like whatever. Every cell in my body was like, fuck yes, here we go. Dude. And then immediately I was just like, no, I'm an addict, I can't. And she goes, oh, you're serious? I was like, I fucking can't.
Yeah.
Because it just takes that one day and I'll be fucking right out there trying to get morphine again. But I'm off it for 7 years now.
Well,
it still hits me.
That's an important thing to recognize if you have that addictive personality. Mm-hmm. I mean, I probably have it with certain things, but I don't think I never really got it with drugs, which is good. Like I can try this or try that and be like, okay, that's what that's like. But I prefer like, I mean, the worst thing I do right now is, besides like drinking at bars with you guys with, whatever, I don't get too hammered, but like, it's just nicotine, and nicotine is like super addictive. And it was like an anxiety thing that I actually started smoking because we ran out of weed in Asia, and it's all European guys or Asians. And they would mix it with tobacco. So you run out of weed, you just smoke cigarettes. And then I realized that I just like smoking.
Yeah.
I just like, and then I was like, well, the smoking's fucking up my voice, so I'll try the vapes. The vapes will fuck up your voice if you do it too much.
Yeah.
But you get way more addicted to the nicotine.
Oh, yeah, because it's so much more, and you feel that free. Because I did the vapes for a long time. I smoked cigarettes, but I did the vapes for a long time. And I realized the difference because with a cigarette, I always went outside. Yeah. It was this thing where you went outside, whether it was every half an hour, every hour, you had to make that trip outside.
There's an extra step.
With the vapes, I just sat on my couch and just puffed away, and I got way more addicted to that than I ever did the cigarettes. But then I quit the vapes. I was off nicotine for like 2 years, and then it took one night of getting drunk with my buddies. They offered me a cigarette, one cigarette, right back on it.
Yeah,
that's all it takes.
On the subject of like dogma that's been crammed down our throats, one of them that marijuana is a gateway drug. While then, oh really? You've never done something irresponsible on alcohol? Stupid. Nobody's ever like alcohol is the real gateway drug. Absolutely, there's no doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I've done way more bullshit on alcohol than I ever did.
Absolutely. I mean, if you get high enough, you will not want to do anything at all. Maybe eat all the food in your house, but that's you might want to make. A peanut butter and ice cream sandwich or something.
I ate cornflakes and hot sauce one time.
There you go.
Because that's all I wanted to eat for some reason.
Yeah, and that's really just a heightening of senses or whatever. But I mean, it's not. It's always funny to me that people talk about this blanket idea of drugs, and that being high on acid is like being high on anything. It's not acid, or whatever. Like you can't. There's so you high on opium, and you've had a whole shitload of mushrooms. Yeah, that's the same thing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And they lumped it in. And I learned about the war on drugs and how that's kind of a scam, because it's basically once you get basically it's money washing, because it's the supply demand. You create there's a demand for something. The supply is not going to go away because demand and supply is going to equal demand. Mm-hmm. And so if you make the supply illegal, then the supply is just an illegal supply. So then you just can arrest them. But here's the thing: the cash that cycles through that, people can scoop it up. That's washed money because it's already been through a black market.
Yeah.
So apparently, black markets wash money. So the high level, that's how if you're a gangster who gets in a position where you can pass a law, I always say, like, would Pablo Escobar pass laws if he had become a lawmaker in Colombia? Would he have been passing laws that make it harder or easier to traffic cocaine? He probably would have made it the cocaine trafficking is bad law, but if you look at it 10 years down the road, you'd be like, you know what? I feel like it more trafficking of cocaine after that law.
Yeah,
which is how a lot of things in our country have gone. I think we just have a lot of high level gangsters. Well, if you're successful enough as a gangster, you have a shitload of money. And then what's the number one factor in whether or not a candidate gets elected or not?
Yeah,
it's money. So if you get sponsored by the right people, and if those people can kind of wash their like people's awareness of them, their character, you kind of clean it up, you give yourself a makeover, say, oh, this is not a mobster, he's a businessman, whatever. And people forget how he got there in the first place, or he was able to keep it on the low the whole time.
The Kennedys are a perfect example.
The Rodhams.
Yeah.
And guess what? One of them turned against the mob, and one of them did not. Guess what happened to the one that went against the mob?
Yeah. Every son got a bullet in his head.
and then you look at all the laws that Clinton passed when he was in office, and all of them support black market trafficking. Yeah. All of them. All of them. North American Free Trade Agreement, the Fannie Mae thing. The my favorite one is Reynolds. What was his last? Al Reynolds or something. His last name is Reynolds, and he was pardoned after he was in jail for as a sex offender because he was doing stuff with underage, like campaign aids, and then he was doing another like 20 years or something for tax evasion. Then Clinton pardoned him for the tax stuff after he had served for like the sex crime stuff, and then he went to I think Kenya and got in a bunch more trouble. I think he's back in jail.
Jesus.
But it's like this guy was probably, he sounds like he was kind of a thug for the mob.
Yeah.
And then he got him out of jail. But it's like people don't think about, like, could someone who essentially does organized crime reach the level of like the presidency? But then you have to think, okay, just in wacky world, what if they did? What kind of laws would get passed? Would they make it obvious?
No.
They fucking made it to the presidency. They're really sneaky at tricking people into thinking that they're one thing when they're not.
Yeah.
And also, like with the news media, it's like you're not doing. That's what they call DC Hollywood for ugly people.
Yeah.
Because it's just if you lack the talent or the charisma or the looks to be an actor, the same job is getting on stage, reading something you didn't write, and convincing people that you're really serious when you're really just getting paid.
And that was the craziest thing over, like, when the pandemic first started, is how much people worshipped certain public figures.
Yeah.
Because we were all, most people were fucking terrified. They didn't know what was going on. Like, especially in New York, I hear a lot of people talk, like when Cuomo used to get on TV, people were almost relieved because, he's here to, tell me everything's going to be okay. Tell me what I have to do. And, everybody loved him. He was on Fallon and like he started making the rounds.
Yeah.
Almost like a celebrity.
People mistake like the politicians as like our tribe leaders. Like I know like technically they're in the position of like the tribe leader, but it's not a tribe like I'm talking about like the necessity hunter gatherer, like you're going to go extinct if you don't follow this person. Because if that were true, the people who didn't go along with official stories would be dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just not the case. I mean, the fact what matters in survival is education in the sense of education and the ability to educate yourself, as in your ability to think through stuff in a logical manner and be able to trace stuff back to a necessity point. And if you can't, maybe it's real, maybe it's not. Maybe I'm missing stuff. That's fine. And I'm not going to pretend like I know all the answers. Yeah. But I do know if you haven't done as much work as me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like if I can trace it back farther than you, I'm going to go with my opinion. if I can trace it back closer to necessity than you can, then I'm probably going to go with what I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And say, oh, well, this bill was passed making this, whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, whatever. But most of the bills that get passed, like a lot of that's high level money laundering as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff that got passed where they're just sending money to other countries without fixing our own stuff. It's like, what's going on? Well, maybe there's some gangsters and they're washing money. They're sending that money to their people over there and then washing it back. A lot of times it's their kids. Maybe it's Joe Biden's kid. Maybe it's Pelosi's kid. Maybe it's John Kerry's kid. Maybe it's God, who's that other guy? I always forget that guy's name. Anyway, there are 5 of them. They all got kids working in the Ukraine.
Yeah,
it's just a thing, you know. And there's certain points where they do more of that. Like, I don't know. Like again, like anything that you don't know for sure, you don't know at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I get this like from fighting, like mixed martial arts. Like there's more bullshit artists in mixed there. When I started, there were so many bullshit artists in mixed martial arts because it started to take over. It became really obvious that we were better fighters than people who just did Hapkido and punched the air all day.
Yeah.
And couldn't fight on the ground. And so you'd have these guys like in these Hapkido places, they just reinvent themselves, say, oh, we're doing Vale Tudo, we're doing no holds bar, we're doing MMA, and they'd watch a couple of videos and think they knew what they were doing. And those guys would get fucking destroyed in competition. Yeah. They would show up and be like, oh, it's one of this guy's, you know, it's one of Skip Hall's fighters. Like, oh, this guy's a fucking chump.
Those are some of my favorite videos to watch, is those like, you know, masters or whatever who have their entire class.
They make me sad.
They have their entire class just go with this charade, and then they go up against somebody real and just get fucked up. It's my favorite videos to watch.
I get accosted by people like that. Like, it doesn't have as much as it used to because like it's just harder to lie about that shit now.
Yeah.
You know, like, but I talk to people all the time who are like, oh yeah, I did all these fights, and man, I would have been really good at this or whatever, and I wish I was younger because when I was doing Taekwondo, I'm like, shut up. Shut up. You punch boards. Like, what are you doing? You know, you learned some choreography and did some cool kicks. You can impress your girlfriend in high school.
Yeah.
If you're still talking that shit at 30, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care.
It's like you did glorified yoga.
Yeah,
like, that's really what it was.
Not that but here's the interesting thing too. Like back to the same thing I was saying with process thinking. You can trace all the martial arts back to necessity. Like most martial arts were used to kill people who were trying to kill you at one point. But it might have been like what Steven Seagal does. He does Aikido, right? And it's like Aikido is one of those martial arts where it doesn't make a lot of sense in context of today. You know what I mean? Like Seagal would get his ass whooped if he did like an MMA fight, but that's not what he's good at. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's good at the traditional martial art, and he's very, very high level in Aikido. But that style is not a hand-to-hand combat style. It's when you don't have a sword and they have a sword style. It's about disarming weapons. That's why that's why it's all about getting the wrist, and there's a lot of small joint manipulation and working the guy to the ground, and it's a lot of controlling one arm. That's the same thing a special forces guy or a military or police would say. Yeah. If you're trying to get down a suspect, you always control their hands so they don't reach for a weapon. Or if they have a weapon, you get a hold of it and you don't let that motherfucker go no matter what they do. Because otherwise they're going to get away and kill you. So, and that's a necessity. You know what I mean? You have to boil it back to necessity. Martial arts all go back to that. Do you know why they kick high in Taekwondo? It's all about jumping up and kicking.
What? Because
the Koreans were being attacked by people, other people in Asia. I'm not sure which country. I don't want to make it up. But they were on horseback. Okay. And so they developed a style of fighting that was jumping up in the air and kicking people off of fucking horses. Otherwise, you would die. It's all about necessity. Always comes back to that. Now it's the sport of who can flip up the highest and kick the board. But that's the expansion of, that's like the sport, like tribute to this necessity style of like, dude, if there's a fucking samurai on a horse, you got to kill that motherfucker. He's got armor and a horse. You got to kick him off the horse, and then we can kick his ass.
Yeah.
You know, and it all goes back to necessity. So like even like Seagal or you have a lot of these like a lot of martial arts that like people scoff at. I'm like, no, that's legit. Like a Taekwondo kick will knock you into fucking they'll destroy you. But you have to know,
because there's still athletic people doing this, so it's like there's a certain amount of strength that comes from it, but practically nowadays it just doesn't translate.
Right. Well, it does translate, but you have to know a bunch of other stuff too.
Yeah.
You have like a Michael Venom Page, who's an unbelievable like point karate fighter who's done very well in MMA, and he has this point karate fighting style, and he lands these wild kicks and punches and stuff on people. There's the other dude whose name I cannot think of right now, but he's an even better example who comes from the same background. So there are people who have been able to implement these more traditional martial arts styles in actual like full contact competition, but don't, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, great example. But don't think for a second that those guys can't fucking do everything else too. You have to have your bases covered, or else, you know, oh, what's he good at? Only one thing? All right, I'll just do everything else. You got to do at least 4 sports pretty well to be an MMA fighter.
And that's more true nowadays, because back when like UFC and all this stuff first started out, it was literally just taking these 2 styles and putting them against each other. And then when the Gracies started choking everybody out, they were like, okay, we got to figure something else out. Like, we're all going to die if we don't learn all these other, like, basics of, you know, what is now. It's almost like just saying MMA, it is a fighting style you can train now. You know?
It didn't used to be. Anyone who's claiming to just teach MMA as a style, I felt was not doing a good enough job. When I was coming up. Nowadays, it legit
makes sense
because, especially in Vegas, because we have the Performance Institute, and if you aren't training with someone who's training there, you're getting beat up by someone who's training there, or you know someone who knows someone who's doing that. Like there's like a pecking order to where but they're studying the sport as a competitive sport now. So now it's kind of like punch, take down, whatever. But before we were just like cutting and pasting different things and just seeing if it worked. And a lot of times we'd have stuff that probably wouldn't work today, but worked really well then because we happened to be trying on someone who didn't know how to defend any of it. I mean, I started off in full contact Vale Tudo matches, which is like headbutts. I don't think groin shots were legal. But that was pretty much it. You had the spiked elbows, and I just remember my first fight I was ever in. And this isn't just my first professional MMA fight, but it was my first fight I was ever in. I remember I got headbutted several times, and then I headbutted him back. And I was like, okay, that's just part of the thing. You can soccer kick, you can stand up and kick him in the head. But the fact of the matter is that none of us are really that good at MMA to really hurt each other that bad. Or maybe I'm just built like a bison.
Yeah, probably.
But whatever. It was you didn't see like these cataclysmic injuries in the early days of MMA when I was doing it. Because we weren't like these juiced up like former wrestlers, you know, but we were just sort of martial artists trying to figure out this new sport. But nowadays the rules make a little bit more sense because we have more talented athletes and we have people who are getting, but still we have these young kids coming up who are just getting really creative. You know, we've got some really creative fighters who are doing some wild shit, and you start to see a resurfacing of some of these more traditional styles like Taekwondo or whatever, which are, you're starting to see wilder kicks be really effective in MMA because it's almost like we forget about it. It's like, oh, you can jump up and spin around and kick someone in the head. Like I didn't even realize, I forgot that was even a move. So people quit practicing it. You know?
Interesting.
But so you get your fundamentals down. I guess it was all about establishing the fundamentals because we didn't know what they were. Like every event, you see new fundamentals established. Like somebody takes you down. How do you use the cage to get back up? Because a lot of times you're fighting in a ring. Like what do you do? Like what are the rules for leg locks? A lot of different places have different rules on leg locks. IBJJF rules was like they have a whole thing of like no reaping the heel or no, what is it? You're not supposed to like cross your leg all the way over their leg, but you can like grab their foot and grab their leg with your legs, and you can break the ankle that way. Sometimes you can't heel hook. I mean, there's all kinds of different. And we see, and I came up through an era when everyone was just trying different stuff. And finally, I think they've kind of settled on the UFC, which is probably the best version of the sport we have right now because of the USADA testing, where the USADA is the only organization that tests as strictly as they do. It's very expensive to do the test, and most promoters, they don't even test. Like in ONE FC in Asia, like they don't test at all. I've got a theory that whole organization is a money washing racket out of Singapore. I really do. Like it's very, when you're over there, it's pure propaganda. Like they don't allow, there are no journalists that are allowed to write objective articles on how their shows went. I've never seen one. I've never seen one for ONE FC ever. They very tightly control the media around their organization, and they just, You know, they're like, oh, we're the this or that. It's like, yeah, they're a
Mm-hmm.
big organization. Yeah, they have millions and millions of dollars, but that doesn't mean those dollars aren't coming from like drugs or prostitution or weapons or something
Mm-hmm.
else. You know, and who knows? The UFC though, like, I mean, they're dealing with athletic commissions. They put the most effort into
Making it legit.
yeah, making it legit and even playing ground. I mean,
Yeah.
people still like there is fuckery, but nowhere near the amount of fuckery that you see. Like you'll see a bad call from the referee,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see some crazy judgments, but that doesn't happen nearly as much as it used to. It used to be wild. Like I used to watch fights as recently as like, you know, 6-7 years ago and be like, that's a fucking work.
Yeah.
100%. I think that's a work. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and now it's like you just don't see that much of it. I mean, the UFC's done a pretty good job. They're the only organization that tests like they do, by the way. Like,
I've heard that.
If the UFC says someone's not on steroids, they might not be on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone else might be on steroids, they're definitely on steroids. like 100%.
And so, how often do you actually fight, or did you stop all that and you just continue to train?
I was continuing to train for a while. I ended up dealing with like a custody battle with my son, and I've been out of it for a while. My last fight was in Shanghai in a tournament, which also might have been a money washing organization, Rebel FC. I worked for them. I had fun, but I mean, it felt like real spaghetti western like set. You know, like when you're there, like and they're acting like it's this big show, and they have a big venue, they have big fighters, they have all this stuff.
Yeah.
They're paying people for stuff, but then there's like nobody in the audience. I'm like, there's no demand for the supply. It's sketch.
Oh yeah.
Period.
Yeah,
Whenever there's more supply than demand, I'm like, and they're acting like, yeah, this is organic. No, the fuck, it's not. Because look at the stands. Nobody in the seats.
Yeah.
It's not a thing.
And like, yeah, it would be weird because it's like all this production, all this, you know, hoopla. Like
it's a huge production.
If the NFL or like the WWE had this whole production of all these people, and then you look at and nobody gives a fuck.
It's like COVID. They have a bunch of cardboard cutouts
in
the fucking stands. That wasn't creepy.
That was so weird. It made me uncomfortable.
But yeah, my last fight was in Shanghai like 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I lost. I lost really badly in a fight that I didn't really take seriously, and I got beat up really bad. I had some injuries, and I was like, I have to do it. I was like, I wanted to quit, but I was like, I have to do it at least one more time, just so that I know that I can. You know, maybe I'm not as into it as I was, but just for my own psychology, I have to have at least one more competition. I entered this tournament in Shanghai, and I lost in the first round to Adriano Balbi, who later just gave me a black belt because I'd been doing jiu-jitsu for like 20 years, and he's like, all right, here you go. But he's a nice guy, and he's still killing it out in Brazil and doing his thing. But we just a very boring fight. Nobody really did much to anybody else. He pushed forward a little bit more, I guess. They gave him a decision in like a weird, like kind of 2-round tournament format. They're like, if round 1 and 2 are totally even, then we go to a third round. But he was just kind of like, all right, he went on, he won the tournament. And then I was like, I didn't get hurt. All right, whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of wasted my trip to Shanghai, but I learned my lesson. I'm not going to go get brutalized unnecessarily. So if I get them, you know, I'm 41 though, and I'm 41, single dad, trying to I'm fighting the dad bod now. That's my main thing.
Yeah,
I'm like 30 pounds overweight.
Staying in shape as much as you can.
So I want to get back on the mats. Like my son's about to be jiu-jitsu age, so I'm going to be getting him back in. I'm hoping that I can catch fire again, just personally, like get motivated just by watching him, because hopefully he'll get into it. And he'll want to wrestle with me, and then at home, like I'll find myself like running drills and stuff with him.
Yeah.
So and then that's going to just keep me sharp, and we'll see. Because nothing will motivate you to get in shape like getting your ass beat by someone who's like 18 years old who's just hungry.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I feel like with my experience, I feel like I should be way more badass than I am, and I'm not. Like I get fucking stomped out by scrubs in the gym all the time. But these guys aren't scrubs. These are like really well-trained versions of me when I was a total psycho at 20 years old, just obsessed with being as good as possible.
Yeah.
So it's just
and a lot of the times, you know, what I hear is like more and more kids are being trained from like your son's age, you know, and they take it all the way up into adulthood, where I assume you started when you were like 17, 18 years old, something like that.
I started karate when I was like 14 or something like that. And then I got out of that. That was like straight up Rex Kwando. That was it. It was like this guy with the mustache, and he like kind of march around. Like I remember one time he goes, "Karate men don't walk around with our hands in our pockets because someone might sucker punch you. You know why they call it a sucker punch?" He had a big mustache and shit. because you got to be a sucker to get hit with it. Like that was my karate instructor starting out. It was straight out of Napoleon Dynamite. It was straight up that guy at the YMCA in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Amazing.
And then I did that for like a year. It was like American Kempo, and I stopped because it was fucking lame. And then I realized I was always obsessed with like I wanted to know how fights are supposed to go because I knew I'd never get in one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just wasn't the type of person. I was so scared of like action. It's like I've never been in a fight without a referee. Just to make that disclaimer.
That's crazy.
Ever.
I've been in so many fights in my life.
That's
like,
hilarious.
I used to get my ass kicked, and then I had to fight back. So like I was in street fights all the fucking time. It was ridiculous.
I don't understand that. I know that some people like it's more of like a common thing for them,
mm-hmm.
but like when someone's at the bar, like you ever see that guy at the bar and you walk in and he's just giving off like weird vibrations.
Oh yeah.
You're like that guy's gonna go to jail in 3 hours.
Yeah.
And sure enough, right on, you know, you're
mm-hmm.
right on time. That all of a sudden he started some shit and whatever.
Yep.
I was always like, you're either an idiot or you're a psycho if you fight without if you fight just cause.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you don't have to
mm-hmm.
and you decide to get in a fight, because I've definitely had friends who have non-fighters
mm-hmm.
and they just fall down and hit their head on something in a stupid street fight and they die.
Like,
I had a friend in college that happened to.
Yeah.
And it's not necessary. There's
mm-hmm.
no reason to ever potentially expose. But people who don't train, they don't understand like how, like they don't really understand actual violence and like how when you're in a situation where you have a referee and you have mats and you have whatever, like you're not gonna die. You know,
mm-hmm.
if it's regulated at all by an athletic commission, you're not gonna fucking die.
Unless it's some weird like freak accident. But
and usually that's because your body was not ready to do that thing and you still did the
mm-hmm.
thing. Like you cut too much weight and your brain didn't have enough water in it and smashed up against your skull. Or you already had an issue and you didn't tell anybody because a lot of fighters, they just fought hurt because they didn't have insurance. And so the insurance of fighting would like the health, they'd be like, oh, what a surprise. I tore my ACL in the fight. So now the organization pays for it. Like that was kind of health insurance, which is competing a lot.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it wasn't, but you're not going to die is my point, you know, unless the organization is like a money washing organization that doesn't check, it doesn't really take care of their health and they're just grabbing people and throwing them in there.
Yeah, and that was the thing. That's the only reason I fought so much when I was a kid. It was because I was just defending myself against these fucking psychopaths who always wanted to pick a fight with me for some reason. Yeah. And the only reason I got it to stop is when I made it real. Like, because they would just, you know, push me around, whatever. Now we're in a fight. There was one time where I've been beaten up so many times. I fought all of his friends and him and this and that. Eventually, they started following me home from school. Just a gang of these fucking assholes. I just turned around and I pulled out a knife. And I was like, if we're going to do this, we're going to fucking do this. I was like, it's not a game to me. And that's when they were like, oh, you need to calm down, man, or whatever. And I was like, no, I'm not fucking around anymore. Like, this is real life to me.
I thought you mean you turn around and punch one in the nose. I think you pulled out a fucking
I pulled out because I had already fought all of them, by that point. But they were still constantly fucking with me. Yeah. And it was like, at that point, I was like, this is real life to me now. Yeah. Like, I know you guys are fucking around. You're having fun. You think it's a game. I was like, but if we're going to do this, we're going to fucking do this now. And that's when they all were just like, nope, all right, you're crazy. Fuck you, pussy. You need a knife, this and that. I was like, I'm just over it, man.
I sort of agree with both of you.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. But a lot of that is just like, because the bullies, they don't want to fight. They want entertainment and they just can't, they're not creative enough to find a more positive way to do it. Yeah. And so they pick on somebody and, beat them up. And it's exciting to feel dominant or whatever. And then it's the whole idea of like punching a bear in the nose if he's charging at you. It's like, if that bear really wants to eat you, you're going to get eaten. But if that bear's just trying to figure out if you're going to be easy to eat or not, and you sock him in the nose, he'd be like, man, I don't, all right, fuck it, I'll eat something else. Yeah. I'll find some honey or whatever.
Yeah. I'll find something less aggressive.
It's not that he can't, it's just like, he's not trying to burn those calories. He's got to hibernate or whatever. Everything's got its own agenda. But I never understood the psycho in the bar. I was like, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah. See, I've never been in a fight as an adult. You know, like all that shit was when I was a kid dealing with fucking kids. Yeah. But once I could kind of control the situation a little better, I've never gotten into a fight.
Yeah.
You know, I've had psychos in a fucking bar. I've seen them. Stayed away from them. I had one dude have his girlfriend hit on me at a bar and touch me and do all this shit, and he came up being aggressive with me. And I was like, dude,
that's so creepy.
I was like, you both are out of your fucking mind.
she that might be one of those things where she gets off on watching her boyfriend like beat dudes up.
That's what I thought of immediately.
What a piece of
and
trash.
I just left the bar. I was like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Because then he's probably going to beat her up later anyway.
Yeah, right. Or he's just going to find somebody else. You know? It's like, but I'm not going to be the dude. I
better get him someone to beat up. I got to find him a punching bag for the night, or else it's me.
Yeah, it could be. It's like, but I thought it was like a kink between them. Like that's kind of the vibe that I got.
Probably that too.
And so, but all I thought of is like, fuck, if you're gonna get pussy out of me getting beaten up, like, can't you throw some my way? Like, get me laid for the contribution.
Yeah, did that ever happen?
No.
All right, well, got your answer.
I stayed away from it all. All right, man. I've been going for like almost an hour and a half.
Nice.
Seems like a good one. This is good talk, man. Fucking great episode. Is there any social media or anything that you want to plug?
Yeah, with the Paprika show, the Paprika podcast, we're trying to build up our YouTube. I'm gonna shame Jason hard about not having a cool studio like this. We'll try to figure it out. And he's real like Jason is a brilliant comedian, and he and I have become friends really through fitness. His back was all fucked up, and I taught him how to like repair his back the way I did after I got hurt in a knife fight.
Oh, nice.
And then he turned into like this character, this Gothans character, where he's like doing weird headstands, and he doesn't like to do formal training. He just likes to figure shit out on his own, but he's gotten pretty good at like standing on his head and climbing on stuff and whatever, which is way more than he could barely walk when I met him.
Yeah.
So that's positive. I mean, like, he got his back back, but he lost his mind, and that's all right.
As long as he's still funny.
He's still funny as shit, dude. We've been forcing him to go back out on mics, and he's been fucking killing it. I got him up at Champagne's, he fucking killed it. Got him up at Ocha, he fucking killed it. So check out Goth G0 THINS, or check out the bodega down here on what's that fucking street? I can't think of it right now. Anyway, it's over. We're good for Sprouts Farmers Market. We always advertise Sprouts. Yeah, we've been working out and trying to just get our money right and get our schedules right, and we really need to get the studio situation set up.
Yeah.
But yeah, go to the Paprika Show on YouTube, and we'll be cranking out new content there probably the next couple weeks. And David Hollywood Hulett, or Hollywood Hulett, HULETT, Hollywood Hulett on Instagram. Although I don't really promote like my shit. Instagram's just kind of like my own personal. I haven't figured out the social media thing yet. You know what I mean?
I'm still struggling with it.
I still have like a very civilianish social media presence. Yeah, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
that's like thing. That sounds like a gong that Steven Seagal would ring right before he disarmed a knife.
Right. Well, I'm just gonna disarm a microphone. But yeah, I'll have all of that in the description of the video, all the links or whatever, so you can find it very quickly. Follow me. What is my fucking Instagram? A_Hernandez_comedy. Go there. I still don't post very much. I need to get better at it. The last thing I posted on my Instagram was a show that I featured at like 3 months ago.
There's a whole system doing that where you have to post like this many like stories a day, and there's the stories, there's the reels, there's the videos, there's the actual pictures. There's
seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, well, apparently all of it is supposed to just drive things to YouTube or Twitch, whatever actually can be monetized. So really all the other apps, Facebook and everything, are just designed to drive. They're just marketing to drive to YouTube, which is the main one. Like wherever you're making money, I guess. But presence is presence.
Yeah, and I want to eventually monetize this podcast, but we were talking a lot about lizard people, so I don't think that's going to happen for this one.
maybe not. I don't know. Lizard people might be trending soon. We'll see.
It could be. But yeah, go follow David at all of his shit. Follow me, and if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. Help me promote this shit. I'm gonna have new comedians every week, or at least I'll try to. I'll try not to take another 3-month break. We're gonna get back on this, David Hulett.
Good stuff.
I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it one day.
I believe in you.
All right. Any last words?
Oh yeah, and you can check me out at Ocha Thai Restaurant here in Las Vegas, playing piano for
That's right.
The not your typical open mic, the Comedy Dojo, run
Comedy
by
Dojo.
Ty and AJ Rivera, no relation, and that's the one. But then I'll be featuring Ian Rainier's show, and that's the same one, a different Ian Rainier show that you'll be doing. I'll be doing that on Monday. You'll be doing it the Sunday before that. And don't bring either one of those two dudes up to each other because they are mortal enemies. But whatever.
But we support comedy, so we're at both shows all the time.
A mic is a mic.
Exactly. We just need stage time because we're hungry comedians. I fucking hate this thing. All right, we'll get the fuck out of here. I love you people, and until next time.